Hey everyone, welcome to Cast Iron Cookware, where you can find information to help you better collect, restore, and use cast iron cookware. Today we're going to be making Mexican cornbread, and we're going to be making them in our Birmingham stove and range 7-stick cornstick pans, and we're going to be doing that coming right up. Okay, we're going to be making Mexican style cornbread, and we're going to be making that in our Birmingham stove and range cornstick pans. Now I have 8 cornstick pans. You don't have to have 8. All you need is 1. But we're going to do a little bit of a twist. We're going to use 2, and we're going to put 1 on the bottom and 1 on the top. That way when we make our little corn sticks, they'll be shaped like an entire ear of corn. Now, like I said, you don't have to do that if you don't want to. The principle will still be the same as far as the mix and the temperatures and all that. But I just want to share just a little bit of my Birmingham stove and range. Now here is a Century series. Of course, the Century and the Red Mountain looks alike on the handles, but here's a telltale sign of the Birmingham stove and range cornstick pan, along with the alternating cornstick rows. Now there's other companies that made the alternating cornstick rows, but Birmingham stove and range always alternated. The Century series has the smaller numbers. Here's some that are kind of in line with the cornstick. Let's see if I can get another one here. That's a Century. Here's another Century where the number, the 7S, is not in line with it. Have a couple examples of Red Mountain. Now the Red Mountains will have the large letters. Here's a large one right here. Here's one that has a little different angle right there. Now those are Red Mountains with the large letters. Now I have another Red Mountain piece that is a little bit on the special side. Here is a large cornstick pan. Of course, it has the, well, it's hard to tell the difference between a 7 and an L. But here's a comparison. One of them is quite large. And if you put them together, that is the difference in size. The large ones are a little bit on the rare side. I'd say the value is somewhere around $40 or $50, maybe even more depending on how bad you want it. I think if I found one in great shape, I wouldn't think too hard about paying $50 for it. I like to have another one to go with this one. There is another type of cornstick pan, one made by Birmingham Stove and Range, and it is the Handy Dan cornstick pan. And it's, I guess, essentially a Century series. Of course, we'll take a look at the back. And the handle doesn't have the ridge. Has a little bit of a slight ridge there, but not a whole lot. And the teardrop hanger hole is not quite the same as the others. But what I like about it is it's got a handle. And you're less likely to drop it and less likely to get branded. So I thought I'd share that with you. But okay, back to our cornbread. What you want to do is you want to take your cast iron and put it in the oven and let it preheat at 500 degrees. Now once your oven gets up to 500 degrees, you're going to go ahead and give it another 10 minutes because you want these to be sizzling hot. Because when you pour your cornbread in, if it doesn't sizzle, then you didn't get it hot enough. And I do want to say, be extremely careful with these small cornstick pans because there's not a lot to hold on to. I had an issue not too long ago where I dropped one and I tried to catch it and I didn't catch it right and I got branded with cornstick. So it's about to go away, but those things will happen even if you're careful, but maybe less likely if you're careful. So just be careful because cast iron does get very hot. But those are the 3 Birmingham Stove and Range cornstick pans that I know of. I've heard that there is a smaller cornstick pan, but I'm not too sure about that. I haven't seen it personally. So we're going to take these and put these in the oven and let them preheat while we're mixing up our ingredients. Okay, while our cornstick pans are being preheated, we're going to go ahead and mix up our ingredients. So let me tilt the camera down so we can see what we're doing. Okay, we went ahead and put our cornmeal and our flour in our bowl to start with. I have 2 cups of cornmeal and I have 1/2 cup of self-rising flour. And we're going to go ahead and add some more dry ingredients. We have 2 teaspoons of baking powder, 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda, 1 teaspoon of onion powder, 1 teaspoon of garlic powder. We're going to go ahead and start adding some of our wet ingredients. We're going to start with 1 cup of whole buttermilk. Next thing we're going to do, we're going to go with 1/2 cup of corn oil. Now you don't have to use corn oil, but the flavor, it seems to go better with cornbread. We're going to add 2 large eggs. Dump them in there. Forgot a while ago with the dry ingredients, we're going to add 1/2 teaspoon of salt. 1 large onion chopped, and you can chop it to whatever thickness you like. Some people don't like big chunks. I kind of like big chunks. And the equivalent of 1 large jalapeno. Now these are not fresh jalapenos, these are pickled jalapenos. But it's about the equivalent of maybe, 1.5, maybe even 2 jalapenos. But because they're pickled, I went ahead and added just a tad. You can add as much as you want depending on how spicy you like your cornbread. So we're going to mix these up. Okay, we do have a couple more things to add. Now we're going to add Rotel tomatoes. Now I'm using hot, but you can use mild or regular. And I think these are 10 ounces. And I went ahead and drained the liquid off of those. And we have a can of cream style corn. I think there's 14 ounces in there. So we're going to add that. Give it a little stir. We've got one more ingredient to add once we get this stirred a little. Now if it's a little bit on the dry side, you can add a little bit of buttermilk. And if it's a little bit on the wet side, you can add a little bit of cornmeal. And last but not least, you can use Fiesta blend, Mexican blend, shredded cheese. We're going to use 2 cups in this. So this is going to be all of our ingredients, unless we need to add a little buttermilk or cornmeal. And we don't want to work it too much, but we want to make sure that everything is incorporated, because there is baking powder, baking soda, and it is self-rising flour, so we will get a little bit of activity. Okay, we have all of our ingredients incorporated. We'll go ahead and get our cornstick pans. I believe that they are up to 500 degrees now, so let's go get them and we'll check them out. Okay, we have our pans out of the oven and they are hot. At this point, you're going to be needing some gloves because you don't want to get burned and you don't want one of these. So let me pull our camera down so we can see what we're doing. Okay, I've got all of my pans over here stacked up because I really don't want them cooling off. But we're going to go ahead and take 4 of them. And I like to make sure all of them's pointed the same direction. That way when I get ready to put my caps on, I have them oriented already. Now I'm going to use a non-stick oven spray just because it helps me release better. And we're going to, usually when you fill these up, now we have a little sizzle. Usually when we fill these up, we only fill them up kind of level because we don't want them rising up and merging together. But in this case, we're going to put a little extra because we want them rising up, because we're going to be putting a top on them. Now, because of the camera and issues, it's probably not as hot as I would like for them to be, because it took me a minute to get everything situated and get my camera back on. But at this point, you should hear a sizzle. There is a little sizzle, but not as loud as I really want it. I've always heard if you don't hear a good sizzle, there we go, we got some sizzle. If you don't hear a good sizzle, then you didn't get your pan hot enough. And if you don't get enough, or if you get too much in it, just rake it over to the next one and finish topping it out. Now, if you only have 2 pans, you can half the recipe. And if something happens and you run out of mix before you get to the end of all the pans, then you can leave some empty. It's not going to be a problem. Okay, we have all of our pans filled. We have a little, so we'll go back and find the ones that could probably use a little topping off. Now here is the tricky part. You want to make sure it's lined up where the small end is facing the small end. And what I like to do is line up the handles and then press it just a little. And you can hear that top sizzle just a little. Okay, we're going to stick these in the oven and we're going to let them stay in there for 18 minutes. And what I like to do is after about 9 minutes, I'll go in there and I'll flip them over. You don't have to do that, but for some reason I think it does a little better. But 18 minutes will get you the perfect texture. So you can go a little more if you like it a little more on the crunchy side. Okay, I've got them all in the oven and I'm going to go ahead and set my timer for 18 minutes. And like I said, at 9 minutes, I'm going to go in there and flip them over. Now, you don't have to do that. It probably doesn't make a difference, but I think it might. We'll check it out in 18 minutes. Okay, we got them out. And we're going to go ahead and take the tops off. And we're going to flip them out. Now be really careful on this part because this is where I got branded. I was getting in a hurry and dropped one and then I caught it. So just like that. Okay, now you can take a knife and go through and kind of separate these. Kitchen shears works great, but mine are missing in action. So I have taken these little scissors, and you can trim them apart that way as well. Now you can cook them a little longer if you like them a little more crusty. My fingers are a little big for these little pink scissors. Now watch me find my kitchen shears just as soon as I'm finished. Now you can just leave them to cool, and then afterwards do this after they're cooled off, and you don't even have to trim them. So there we go. So if you like yours a little more crusty, you can go a little longer. I went 18 minutes on these. You know, probably 20 minutes would work as well. You just have to kind of estimate what's best for you. I don't think you're going to have a problem with burning them in 20 minutes or even 22 minutes. I have done them in 15 minutes and they were a little more soft, but 18 minutes is pretty much a good medium time to go with. Now I want to say this, if you don't have 8 cornstick pans like I do and you've only got 2, or even if you've only got 1, you can go ahead and fill them up, dump them out. I will say this, the time it takes to dump them out, those pans will cool off and they won't be quite as hot. I believe it would be a good idea to put them back in the oven for 3 or 4 or 5 minutes before you reload them to kind of get the temperature back up where they need to be. That way you hear the sizzle. So if you don't hear the sizzle, it's not hot enough. Now, because I'm trying to film and trying to get them in here, there was a little bit of lapse in time, so mine wasn't as hot as I really wanted them to be. So usually at 18 minutes, I have a little more crusty, but these are going to still be great. So I hope that you've enjoyed this video, and if you have, please do not forget to subscribe, like, and share, because every like, every subscription, every share makes a huge difference for this channel and helping it grow. You can also follow Cast Iron Cookware on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. There is a Facebook group that we have started a few months ago, and it's called Cast Iron Cookware as well. You can also sign up for a Cast Iron Cookware email list. I send out an email every week or so, just kind of giving an update on what's going on with this channel. Sometimes I share information in the email newsletter that I don't get to share in the videos. I will leave a link to every one of these sites below in the video description. So check it out and check out all these sites if you would like. Thank you again for watching Cast Iron Cookware. Before you go, I just want to share something with you really quickly. In John chapter 3, verse 16 and 17, it says, "For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him should not perish, but have everlasting life. For God sent not his Son into the world to condemn the world, but that the world through him might be saved." I just want to say, share the word and go out and be a blessing.